This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
I'd like to convene the, let's see, where are we here? Yeah, hold on a second here. September 24, 2019, North Haven Fire Commission meeting to order. I'd like to ask everyone to please stand and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask for the approval of the minutes from the Board of Fire Commission meeting held on July 23rd, 2019.
So move.
Do I hear a second? Second. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Discussion of the Chief's report.
Chief's report for this month. Remember, we haven't met now since July 23rd, so some of the stats I'm going to give you are going to be since that time, since our meeting, the last time we met. So year to date, as of 2018 at this time, we're at 3,416 alarms. Year to date at this point in time, we're at 3,308. We're under about 108 alarms from where we were last year. 5 years ago, we were at 3,019 alarms, which is 397 less alarms than we're at current day. Since our last Board of Fire Commission meeting, our paramedic has provided intercept to the hospital on 32 different occasions. That was 32. There's been 22 incident responses to the highway. 65% of our calls were EMS in nature. Since our last meeting, there were 3 incidents in which the fire department experienced a delay in responding to a medical or motor vehicle accident, and there were 5 such incidents that we were unable to send an apparatus to at all due to other incidents occurring at the same time. So along with that, there's been 769 incidents since our last meeting, 166 of which occurred at the same time, which is a 22% overlap of incidents. Regarding our budget, year-to-date this time last year, we were at 28.6%. Year-to-date this year, we're at 25.5%. And I'm going to cover, because when we met in July, it had only been a couple of weeks of fire fees that we had collected. So the number I'll give you now is since this fiscal year began, which would be $181,324. Regarding the fire marshal's office, there's been 77 inspections, 16 re-inspections, 34 different code violations have been written up, 16 of which have since been corrected. We issued 3 abatements since our last meeting, and there's been 58 different various plan reviews and permits that have been reviewed since that period of time as well. Regarding a couple other things that I get asked about sometimes, so this commission meeting I'm often asked about the opioid crisis that's taking place right now and still continues to get our lows and our highs with that. I just wanted to pass out a report from Connecticut EMS Sword, and this is just basically a report that you can take a look at your leisure. It just gives you some idea in terms of what the state's doing to try to combat and research the opioid crisis. It gives you some perspective on how our data that we collect for every single incident goes into a database for the entire state so that we can track issues that are taking place and hotspots and so forth. And there's some specifics on here about some of the different branding of narcotics that are out there right now that are being used. Regarding training, in the last couple of months, there's been a heavy emphasis on communications, and this was due in large part to the dispatch upgrade. So there were some SOGs that were put together, some channels that have been moved around, and that have required us to do quite a bit of testing on our communications and therefore training. We took advantage of nice weather and did a lot of vehicle extrication training as well as hose appointment maneuvering because of the time of year that it is. a few items for executive discussion that are referenced in the agenda and a couple of sick and injury to discuss, and that's all I have for the chief report this one.
Very good. Any questions of the chief regarding his report?
I do. Chief, do we have any, we keep track of how many Narcan
We do, yeah. It's a number that we can run, yeah.
that we do per month?
Yep. Yep, we can pull that number together. It may not always give you some indication that it's an overdose, because Narcan is sometimes a drug that can be used because it's benign unless an overdose is occurring or narcotic is on board. So you could draw some correlation between the amount of time Narcan was used and the overdoses, but it wouldn't be a direct.
What other instance would you use it unless the person was foaming at the mouth or whatever?
Yeah, so
You know?
it really comes down to anybody who's unresponsive that we can't find a distinct answer for. You know, we come across somebody who's completely unresponsive. You don't know what they did or what's around them or anything else. So there are times that you would push Narcan on that patient to rule out the presence of a narcotic on board, an opiate on board. And if it doesn't work, then it's obviously something else.
Now, the police administer this as well, or no, they're out of that business?
Correct. The police also administer Narcan, slightly different than we do. In some ways the same depending on our personnel, but they also administer Narcan.
And these packaging here, this is statewide?
Correct, that's
not
statewide.
North Haven, I hope.
No, sir, not statewide. It's statewide. The only thing you can see here is there's a county reference in here in terms of Hartford versus New Haven County, and you can see that the New Haven County is the second highest occurrences behind Hartford County.
No, I'm talking about the bags here and the stamps on the bags. And well, it's not North Haven. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions of the chief? Chief, I'd just like to comment, I'm really appreciative of the $181,324 in fire fees for the fiscal year. I mean, here we are, a few months in, so it's a significant dollar value and a great addition to the budget. Thank you.
This is 3 months, right, Chief?
Correct, yeah, so that will be a
So
fiscal
it's
year.
like $61,000 a month.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
This
that's
is
great.
fantastic.
Yeah. I'll accept a motion to accept the chief's report.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in question? All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Correspondence.
Correspondence, I have a letter of thanks from the Wallingford Fire Department for our response to the fire they had at the Choate School, and they followed that up with an invitation for our personnel that responded and myself to an event afterwards, and they're just appreciative of response to Choate. It was a fire that occurred during a storm in which we had some incidents occurring here at town, and we were able to get at least one engine up there and help cover, and we're glad that it went well. It was an older building and a challenging fire.
Okay. Chief, do you have correspondence?
I put that under a different section.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other commissioners receive any verbal or written communications? No. Discussion of unfinished business for the fire department?
Just give me 1 second, make sure we actually had that in here somewhere. Mine's much more in depth here. Let me cover that first. So unfinished business, we have OEMS Peace Hour application, which is scheduled, our fourth hearing is scheduled for October 3rd, 2019. As a reminder, the transcripts for all of these hearings are available for the public should they choose to request them through FOI. We expect this to be our last hearing. This one kind of snuck up on us anyways, that it would be granted for a hearing. So we do hope that as of October 3rd, this is the final hearing, closing remarks will be made, and we'll have a decision within about 45 days. Thereafter, we do anticipate an appeal process one way or the other, and you're still looking at several months before we have an answer on the PSA. Regarding the AFG application, so our Assistance to Firefighter Grant applications, we await for FEMA on the response for both. So we have a grant in there right now for PPE and for an apparatus. We have received no word that they've been denied. So again, as I've said before, no news is good news. They have started to be granted. They're released every Friday to departments throughout the nation, and that started occurring about 5 to 6 weeks ago, and it usually goes through until about October, November. So we remain optimistic, but we've heard nothing as of yet. The training center, just just wanted to give an update on that. We continue to work with the architect for the training center, and I'm going to allow the commission to view some preliminary drawings. We've kind of gotten in trouble with showing preliminary drawings in the past, so I just really want to emphasize this is a preliminary drawing only. And we'll see, we're hopeful that this will be the final product. And again, something that you can reference after the fact, but what we're looking at obtaining here is a 5-story, 20 by 20 structure as allowed by zoning. It would have it was going to have a full basement as well. And the training possibilities that this presents is going to revolutionize our training here in North Haven, because we've never had anything like this. Everything we've always done has been tabletop or using a firehouse, or not the correct application for what we're trying to train on. So it's going to have a number of features in it, some of which are going to be windows, which are various sizes, because we encounter various different sizes of windows when we're out in the field, and they obviously change what we can do in terms of ventilation and victim removal. The stairs on the inside will be of different configurations, because if you think about when you're out in the real world, you come across different stairs, whether it be a straight run, whether it be a landing, whether it be a circle stairs, whatever. So there's going to be various different types of stairs going up. There's going to be a hatch when you first walk in between the first floor and the basement. One of the things that we're concerned about from a firefighting standpoint is a firefighter falling through the floor and into a basement, and then we have to retrieve an individual out of the basement. And so this will allow us to be able to perform that in real-life application. There's going to be a repelling point both from a second floor, so a lower elevation, and then a 5th floor elevation as well, and it's going to meet OSHA with a 1,000-pound point for repelling. We'll be able to practice that. It's going to have a roof. What you see coming off the side is a roof that is on a crank, so that we can crank it to different pitches to simulate whether it be a ranch roof or whether it be a cape roof. So the possibilities this is going to provide us is really going to change everything that we're doing in the department. And we're working now. These are preliminary architectural drawings. We're working on some cost estimates. And we're hopeful that we can move forward. We've worked with another developer, or another construction company rather, on the grading that would need to take place and the building that would house the training equipment. And I just have a proposal there, just so that you're aware of what's being discussed. It's really going to come down to a matter of what we can afford with the money that's been appropriated for this through Quinnipiac, and seeing what this all prices out at. I have a couple of local businesses that I continue to work with that have stressed the desire to work with us in terms of whether it be donating materials or whether it be providing items at cost. So I don't yet have an answer on pricing for all of this. That priority in all of this would be the tower, followed by probably the grading, followed by the garage, which would house the training engine and that type of thing. So those are the priorities as I see it, and it's going to allow us to at least do, if not all of it, most of it. Any questions at all on that?
Any questions, Commissioners?
Outstanding.
Yeah, it's pretty comprehensive, that's for sure. Be able to read through this.
A lot of thought in this. Different stairs, different elevations, different openings, different size windows.
Yeah, we're really trying to make it as versatile as possible. You know, most of the firefighting training that we have to do is, believe it or not, it's not live fire conditions. It's everything leading up to that. We put ourselves to the test and our personnel to the test on at least an annual basis or more with live fire conditions. But the training that leads up to that point can all be done in a completely smoky environment with low visibility, with varying floor plans and varying stairs and windows.
Does anybody else have adjustable roofs? I mean, I haven't seen them.
I don't know of anybody else that has
Yeah, I don't think anybody has them.
One of the things that's been nice is the architect who's been assigned to work with this. He's a volunteer firefighter in a town up north, and I kind of encourage him to have fun with this. You know, this bucks the trend, and by all accounts, of what they normally build. So they are kind of having fun building this, and obviously they're making sure it's still safe. They're architects, their licenses behind it, but they're having some fun with it.
Well, we did make some headway with the steel.
Okay.
So we'll be able, once we get the actual print, we'll be able to talk to the people that actually ship it in on rail. Maybe we could buy it right off the rail. So that'd be great.
I have a product list of what we need for steel, so that helps and we can talk.
Okay.
State of fire apparatus. So just to update the commission quickly, engine 2, which was the engine that was struck on the highway, is still out of service. Just updating you, we haven't talked about it since July. I expect that engine to remain out of service until the end of the year, thereabouts. So again, that leaves us with no reserve apparatus at all. Rescue 1's been out of service with a suspension issue for about the last 10 calendar days, which forced us to put Rescue 2 in service, and Rescue 2's been out of service for about the last 2 or 3 days with an engine issue. At this time, we're running a volunteer engine as a rescue. We've done it before, but we have one of our stations which should have 2 engines and it only has 1. So I just want to, stress the importance. You seem to think sometimes that the 6 engines we have are a lot, and they're really not. We barely get by with the number 6 engines that we have. We have no depth for situations just like this. It's something that we continue to work on as a department, and I'll continue to pursue through the budget process, but we've got to just give that some thought. We've talked before about a Boy Scout Explorer program, which would work in place of what we used to have here decades ago for a cadet program. If you recall, the advantageous portion of the Boy Scouts underwriting this was the fact that it would be taken on by their insurance and their liability and so forth. And so there was a meeting held on September 11th in which we asked volunteer firefighters who would serve as mentors to this program to attend, and I attended myself, and I was really happy to see the amount of volunteers that have an interest in helping us to oversee this program. They had a couple of weeks in which to complete some training in order to become mentors and learn how the Boy Scouts want things to be run. And we're really looking forward to having this program up and running and starting to advertise it during the month of October. So that's going to be separate from the ranks of the fire department, so I wouldn't expect the commission to necessarily see people who are coming and going and so forth, because they're going to be minors and they're going to be through the Boy Scouts. The only thing that we're going to need to think about in the next couple of years, and I do think it'll be at least 1.5 years time, is from a fire commission standpoint, if we're ever going to allow them to ride an apparatus for specific call types. And that's something that I'm not prepared to discuss right now, but I do think that's when we may need to start presenting to the commission some names and qualifications so that you can make that decision. But at this point in time, it's quite a ways off. This program is very successful in other towns, and we're really looking forward to getting this out into the high school.
Will they be able to get credits, for instance, like I talked about last time, the University of New Haven's fire program? Would they transfer some sort of academic credits as a result of being in this Explorer program to the university, or we didn't even talk about that yet?
So that we haven't gotten quite that far yet, but the intent would be to sit down with the superintendent of schools and the high school principal and see if there could be something done that would allow for that. It's really going to depend a lot on what our towns are doing.
Okay.
The University of New Haven is one of the easier schools to work with because they're a private institution, and we can probably work out something specific with UNH. It's going to be if we wanted to make sure they had credits for a state-run school.
Well, I can't, with Marty O'Connor, I think is the department head over there. He's been, he's got a history with the fire department, as we all know.
I don't see UNH being an issue.
Yeah.
That's easier. It's the state schools we're going to try to work on as well.
And could I just add to that, we do have 2 dates now that have been solidified, October 24th at 7 p.m. and October 29th at 7 p.m. We're going to have an open house here for potential explorers. In order to be a fire explorer, you need to be between the ages of 16 and 20 years old. And if you're under 18, you have to come with your parents. That's the Boy Scouts rule. If you come here at 18 years old, I'm not going to give you an Explorer application. I'm going to give you a volunteer firefighter application. So, so really, we're looking for excuse me, I said 16, 14, 15, 16, and 17-year-olds at the high school, freshmen through seniors at the high school, to come the October 24th or October 29th with one member of their family, one parent, at 7 p.m. And the Boy Scouts will be here, we'll explain the process. And I'm getting that out to the high school. And
What about insurance? How are they going to be covered insurance-wise if they get hurt or something?
they're covered by Scouts. Yeah, it's a $1 million umbrella, general liability umbrella policy. That's one of the reasons why we were so interested in this program. They handle all the training regimen. Like, we do the training, but they give us the template. It's pretty much a canned program to get people involved.
Great opportunity for us to begin to build our ranks of volunteers as these young men and women, or men in this situation, continue through the program. So, you know, happy that we're pursuing this.
The only thing I have on your agenda for unfinished business is a follow-up to a correspondence for March 26, 2019, and I was provided this letter today from Michael Frida, and I'll allow you to look it over.
I'm going to read the letter. As you recall, at our last commission meeting, there was a discussion regarding the naming of the Montaouise fire station, and whether or not, and with the confusion that there was on our commission as to whether or not our commission had the authority to name buildings, considering that our commission was responsible to name fire headquarters after Chief Rosadini. We requested we sent a letter to First Selectman Frida requesting a legal interpretation as to who has the authority to name town buildings. And the town attorney has, as of September 19th, submitted this response. And I'll read this as you're all reading it together. The Honorable Michael J. Frida, First Selectman, Town of North Haven, 18 Church Street, regarding the request for legal opinion by the Board of Fire Commissioners. Dear Mr. Frida, per this June 28, 2019 correspondence to you, Pasquale Nozzolillo, in his capacity as Chairman of the North Haven Board of Fire Commissioners, requested a legal opinion concerning the naming of Town of North Haven Fire Department buildings. Specifically, Chairman Nozzolillo requests an opinion as to whether the authority and power to name fire department buildings resides with either the Board of Fire Commission or the Board of Selectmen. Section 302F of Chapter 3 of the Town Charter provides in pertinent part that the Board of Fire Commissioners shall have the powers, duties, and responsibilities, and shall be subject to the restrictions and limitations specific in Connecticut General Statute with respect to boards of fire commissioners, or as may be deemed appropriate for such boards. The Charter does not grant the Board of Fire Commissioners authority to name fire department buildings. No provision of the pertinent section of the Connecticut General Statute grants the Board of Fire Commissioners the power to name fire department buildings. The powers of the Board of Selectmen are set forth in Chapter 4 of the Town Charter. There being no specific provision in the Town Charter granting the Board of Selectmen the power or authority to name town buildings. Likewise, there is no provision in applicable Connecticut General Statute authorizing the Board of Selectmen to name town buildings. Chapter 9 of the Town Charter sets forth the powers of the town meeting, specifically the legislative power of the Town of North Haven is vested in the town meeting. Section 901 of the Town Charter specifically provides that the town meeting shall exercise and perform all the rights, powers, duties, and obligations of the town, except as the same may be assigned by this charter to some other office, board, commission, or agency. The power to name town buildings is not assigned to an office, the board, commission, or agency. Thus, the power to name town buildings belongs to the town meeting. Please contact me if you have any questions or require additional information concerning the foregoing opinion. Thank you for the opportunity to be of service. Very truly yours, Jeffrey M. D'Onofrio. So obviously, this letter is in response to our letter requesting clarification as to who has the authority to name town buildings. And it's clear, based on the town attorney's interpretation, that the authority resides in the power of the town meeting. As we're all aware, that Commissioner Criscola presented a letter to this commission. We read it in open session, which requested that the naming of Monowitz Fire Station be named after past Chief Aubert. That letter was simultaneously read at the Board of Selectmen meeting, where it was approved and voted upon, and it was a unanimous vote to name Monowitz Fire Station after Chief Aubert. Once that took place, we had the discussion here at this commission, and there was a great deal of confusion, and we requested the clarification, and I think this is the clarification that we were looking for. So it's obvious to me that our commission and the Board of Selectmen do not have the authority to name buildings at all. It lies strictly in the town meeting form of government under the legislative branch, if you will, which are the people of the town. So based on what the town attorney is indicating, it appears that the selectmen's vote is null and void, and we need to make a decision on this commission as to what direction we would like to go in. You know, there's been previous discussions here at this commission in the past, and there was, in addition to previous discussion, there was in fact a vote that took place, and that was not moved forward. But since that vote, and since this past discussion, there were additional discussions that we had regarding naming the volunteer stations after the past previous chiefs. So I guess at this point, I'm going to open it up to discussion for our commission as to what your wishes are at this point as far as moving forward with this request.
I say we go ahead with it and name the building after Chief Aubert.
Okay.
Well, we can't name it after anybody, according to this
Well, we started it.
decision. Yeah, but according to this decision by the town attorney, it's not up to us to make that call, nor is it up to the first selectman to make that call. It's up to the town residents to make that call. So what I would, given this information, I would suggest that we contact the first selectman's office and try and get them to schedule a special town meeting and hold the vote to, you know, name the fire buildings after all the retired chiefs. So we don't have to come back and forth with this. I mean, that's what makes sense to me. I don't know. But I think we should get the vote from the town, the residents of the town, since that's who they say here has the authority to make this call, and include that all, you know, all the fire buildings be named after the retired chiefs. We have 3 buildings, we have 3 retired chiefs. So, I mean, that's just me.
Mayor, any opinion?
I think that Mike has the right idea. The town people have to vote. Tell the first selectman that this is what our wishes are. See if he wants to bring it to the town people.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, whose decision is it to go forward with this? Would that be a decision of the first selectman, or just based on our request, or what?
Well, it's my understanding that if we submit a letter to the selectmen then would either schedule a special town meeting to address the issue, and the item would be listed on the agenda, and a town meeting will take place. Persons would be able to, you know, speak out in favor or against naming the 3 remaining volunteer fire stations after, per your request, the the remainder of the three chiefs. I mean, obviously, fire headquarters was named after Chief Rosadini. That leaves Chief Aubert, Chief Marola, and Chief Landisio. So that would cover the three remainder of the volunteer stations. So I'm assuming that that would be the process, but my expectation is that a letter would need to be sent to the selectmen in order to move that forward.
Who made the decision to name headquarters after Chief Rosadini? Who made that decision?
You know what, Joe, I'm not quite sure. I shouldn't say that. At the time, the selectman was Janet McCarty. The responsibility at that time, I think the selectmen thought it was their responsibility. And when the Rosadini family submitted a letter to the selectmen sent it down to us, saying, asking what our opinion was at the time. And this commission voted to be in favor of naming fire headquarters after Chief Rosadini as the first chief. And that's how it happened.
But they set the precedent.
Well, you know, we argued that point, that a precedence was set, but the town attorney indicated that that's not the case.
Who else would have the authority to name a firehouse after a chief outside of the fire commission?
Well,
why are we going to let townspeople make our decisions?
Well, because it's the
that's under
charter. It's listed in our charter
Right.
as the town attorney articulated in this letter under these various sections. You know, I think at this point, in order to follow the charter to the letter, as we all need to do and are absolutely mandated to do, the steps need to be taken. And I think the next step is to make the request for a town meeting to do so. But I think that needs to be after a discussion of this commission, because you know, I think you articulated this, Joe, earlier on. We didn't really discuss that issue in the naming of Montaguese as far as for Chief Aubert. It was a letter that was submitted by Commissioner Criscolo and again read by the selectmen, and the selectmen made the decision. We never took a vote as a commission to do so. So I think, you know, we read the letter, absolutely, but in fact, we were unsure as to whether or not we had the authority to vote on that, and that's why we asked for the legal interpretation. But in the meantime, the selectmen made the vote, took the vote, and they missed a step. There was supposed to be another step beyond the selectmen saying, yes, we're in agreement with that. They should have called for a special town meeting, and the residents, according to the charter, are the ultimate decision makers. That's the way I'm reading this legal interpretation. So I guess the open discussion here this evening is, and based on what Commissioner Zuccarelli and Mary Jane is indicating, if it's our wish to send a letter to the selectmen naming all three buildings after the remainder of the three chiefs, because obviously fire headquarters is already named, that would leave Chief Aubert, Chief Marola, and Chief Landisio, and then all three fire stations will have been named. So I guess that's the question. If this commission is in agreement with that, then I'll certainly draft a letter to the selectmen requesting, based on our commission's discussion and decision, that we would ask the selectmen to call for a special town meeting to name the remainder of the three volunteer fire stations after the next three chiefs, the retired chiefs.
Just to gum it up a little bit more, has there been any discussion on the police department's building?
I don't, you know what, I don't have no idea.
You know, we got enough problems.
I don't have, that's the fire commission's
We have
issue.
enough at this
Yeah,
point.
that's not our issue.
All right.
I don't know what they're doing with that, and, you know, I don't even want to get into that. My assumption is that they have to adhere to the same rules and regulations of the charter as we do. So any other thoughts or comments? Commissioner Cuscola?
No, I think that it would be a good idea, Pat, for you to draft a letter, Mr. Chairman, and we could use the language, or you could copy, actually, send your letter with an attached from my original letter, why we should name it after Chief Aubert. I guess if you had to go back, you'd say to Chief Rosadini, naming headquarters was done wrong. But we have to go back. But we have to go back and bring that up at the town meeting also?
You know, personally,
I would say no.
I would hate to do that, too.
I would say no.
Yeah.
I would say that we should actually include that in the letter, that not be brought up, and that firehouse should stay the way it is.
Well, I think what we're
regardless of the
talking about is
charter.
the three
Remaining buildings.
But I don't want someone to come up, I don't want
retired
someone to
chiefs.
come up out of the woods and say, well, that was named illegally, let's name all four now. So let's not get into that.
Yeah.
I like the letter to be specific from the chair, that headquarters stay the way it is and not be changed.
Okay.
Okay? And if that's the wish of the commission to name all three at once, then I'll go with the commission.
Okay.
I just like to make sure that Monowese gets named after Chief Aubert. That was the intent of this whole thing.
Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to get the town residents
To agree on it.
to be in agreement to name buildings after the retired chiefs.
Right.
So I think that's the step. Joe, questions?
I don't think that we should bring up the headquarters, Chief Rosadini's name at all. That's done business. All we do is go forward with the three names that we have left. Don't even mention the Chief Rosadini. That's done.
Well, you know,
We look like fools if we try to change the name on that.
I agree.
Well, we're not going to change the name, obviously.
Yeah.
We're going to actually specify that we're not changing it.
Okay.
Someone will come up out of the woodwork and say something.
Well,
So
we'll handle
let's
it
get
then.
ahead, let's get ahead of the curve. I'm sorry?
Stop talking about it.
Yeah, well, let's
Yeah.
get ahead of the curve. I mean, it's on TV already, so it's not like this is a private meeting that someone held behind back doors and made a decision.
Let's talk among ourselves at this
Right.
point. Okay, so it appears that we're in agreement that a letter should be sent to the selectmen requesting that the selectmen request a special town meeting to address naming the three volunteer fire stations after the three retired chiefs, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right. I will draft up a letter, and you'll each receive a copy of that.
But specifically naming Monowese after Chief.
I think we need to go in steps here. I think we need to find out if they're going to allow us to name buildings after the retired chiefs,
Or just, yeah.
okay? All right? So I will take care of that,
Okay.
all right? New business.
On your agenda, I have listed the 2020 firefighter consortium testing. Just to refresh the commission, we've already agreed that we'd be part of that consortium process again. This will be the second time that we're going to be part of this. If you recall, this is a statewide firefighter eligibility list testing process that we're going to be part of. The first time around, there were, I want to say, 11 to 12 departments that were part of this process. The intent is that we have double that, hopefully this time. We had hundreds of candidates test last time. If you recall, the reasons for us going live with that type of testing process, different from what we had done in the past, was because we were trying to increase our diversity. We were able to jump on the backs of a company that was advertising all over the place, and we were able to get candidates from outside of the state, including in the state, and from all over the state of Connecticut. So the intent is that we're going to remain with that, as the commission had indicated several months ago, so I've given them the green light that North Haven is in. The target go-live date for the application for this is going to be next month, October 2019. They're going to be testing during the spring of 2020, and that list will be effective as of July 2020. So if you recall, we currently don't have an eligibility hiring list. We exhausted this last test that we were part of. Nearly every paramedic that was eligible got hired. We interviewed some, I believe we hired one, and then we exhausted the paramedic list. So bringing us on to the second point there, we do need to hire 2 candidates between now and July 2020. We're looking at hiring 2 candidates sometime around the end of this calendar year. So I'm going to put together candidate testing as we've done in the past, and we'll of course try internally. We had very good luck with that last time. We don't know that we have 2 internal candidates that are eligible, which is going to force us to have to go out and establish a list. One thing that's being discussed is what that process is going to look like, and they'll have to be paramedics, and they'll have to have a national registry and so forth. So CPAT, everything will be the same as we've always done. Just for this time around, we've just got to go out and create our own list and keep it active for the next 6 months.
Chief, is there a residential?
The contract currently requires it, but it's upon appointment. So they're not to apply. To apply, you can be from anywhere. And then, even once you get hired, there can be a provision made that allows that employee time to move to get within the miles. I believe it's 20 miles right now.
20 miles.
Yeah, it's gone back and forth. I think it's 20 miles right now.
Chief, I really appreciate this consortium testing opportunity. As this commission, felt when we first implemented this and agreed to participate in it, it gave us a grander opportunity to diversify, and we struggled attempting to bring on board, women on board, as well as other folks into our ranks, and we've tried to diversify as best we possibly can, and I think this consortium of testing provides us with the greatest opportunity to do that, to bring in the diversity that we're so seeking. So I'm hopeful that they're hugely successful in the testing process and that they can bring qualified candidates to the table, for us to be able to interview. I think once we open up our own list, I'm assuming we're going to be doing some advertising, and I certainly would ask that if there's any residents or any persons that will be reading that advertisement for application to please do so. It's critically important for us to have a diverse workforce, and certainly this commission has been advocating that, as our senior managers have. So I'm very pleased that we're continuing with that relationship. Very pleased.
It had a positive outcome, the consortium tested.
Yeah.
The issue for us, as well as all of our departments, was that the final results were listed into 3 different categories: straight firefighter eligibility, firefighter EMT, and firefighter paramedic. And I don't remember the exact numbers now. I know I've reported it before, but of the hundreds of people that tested successfully for that, there were only 18 that were paramedics. And those 18 quickly got hired, especially when you look at a department like Brantford that hired 6 or 8 of them right away, and some others that are expanding like we are, and they're hiring paramedics. So the overall consortium process was a success in that it did have a lot of diversity in it. It did have a good male to female ratio. It's just there weren't that many that were paramedics, and that's a problem that we're just not going to be able to solve. That goes deeper than how much we advertise. It goes to how much are people going to school for paramedicine, and it's not something we can very easily control.
Do we know what the graduation rate is for the paramedic program you know, I know there's not only one program in the state,
Yeah,
but
there's only a few programs left, and the
Yeah.
graduation rates are pretty high. They have to be in order to maintain accreditation.
Right.
But they're just getting hired that fast. And there's only 3 to 4 reputable programs in the state. So,
Okay.
something to just keep in the back of your minds, and I'll have something for you soon here, when we're just gonna go back to, for this next couple of months, we'll go back to doing what we have done, because we don't have a choice right now. We have to get an eligibility list out there. When July 2020 comes back around, we can go back to hiring from this large list.
and you're thinking that we might have one or two potential
Correct.
candidates internally. That would be great. I'd love to hire within.
The next thing I have on our agenda is just much like I did for the Connecticut Sword report, I just wanted to give you an update. The Emergency Medical Services for Children grant, we're indirectly part of that. So as you know, our medical control is provided by Yale New Haven Hospital and Yale University, and we were asked to participate in a grant application for Yale, in which they are going to monitor the outcome of children, pre-hospital care that was provided, and the level of care provided in hospital, followed by discharge follow-ups and so forth. So this is a grant for 4 years that Yale was awarded that we've been asked to be part of. Sorry, I may not have enough there. It's happening in 3 states, in Colorado, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, and we're working closely with the pediatric department of Yale. So what this means is that every pediatric call that we respond to, our run reports are getting much more scrutinized, where paramedics are having more conversations with the physicians, so that we can attempt to improve our quality of care and have some actual data that goes along with it in a matter of a few years. So I probably won't mention this again, but I just wanted you to at least know and appreciate that our paramedics are involved in these types of studies on this high of a level. And that's all I have for new business.
Very good. Any questions of the chief regarding new business? Good of the fire department.
Good to the department. I have Pastor Detweiler, our department chaplain. I just wanted to bring your attention that he was named Chaplain of the Month. I think that's probably understating what it really means. So he was recognized by the Assemblies of God as a chaplain for the month of August 2019. It's a national award that recognizes him as a chaplain. The chaplain here in this department, he and I, and it's preceded by Chief Lindisio, brought him on board, not really knowing how he would fit in. But he's kind of found a path for himself and a road to success. We developed some policies together that unbeknownst to us at the time was creating quite a bit of buzz throughout the community of Connecticut and beyond, and that's led to him having some resounding success with the chaplain network that he's part of, and the Assemblies of God represents over 13,000 churches, and it's an honor to have him as a chaplain of the month.
Congratulations, Chaplain. We're certainly pleased and blessed to have you on board. You've made a difference in our firefighters' lives, and certainly in the lives of many of the residents that were in distress. So we appreciate what you have done, and we congratulate you on a very well-deserved honor. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Quick update regarding the CERT team, the Community Emergency Response Team. So we're looking to still do a class here in the fall, and we're recruiting citizens, and even if you're not a citizen, anybody who's interested in taking that initial training to become part of CERT. But the real news of this is that we were finally able to locate and purchase a bus. It took us well over a year to find one that our town mechanic gave the blessing of, and that we feel confident about. It's currently parked down at Montoise, and it's going to have the seats removed, and it's going to have storage cabinetry and shelves put in and secured, so that it can serve as a rehab vehicle for our firefighters. It can serve as a mobile ability to be able to bring barricades and traffic barricades. It's going to have coolers, rehab chairs, generators. It's going to have all types of things on it where if we need to activate CERT team in a time of a disaster and bring them to a neighborhood, they'll have the ability to do so. And I really think it's going to invigorate that team, because for the very same reasons that firefighters have been struggling with tabletop scenarios for all these years, the CERT team, granted in its infancy stage, is still only 2 years old, really needs to put their hands on something. And this is something that we're really looking forward to bringing on board. There's going to be some minor modifications done to it, but the nice thing is members of CERT are volunteering their time and their trade, and you're going to see this vehicle hopefully not at a lot of scenes, because that means it's a pretty significant scene, but you're going to see it at least out at a lot of community events, probably by next summer. The only thing I have as well under good of the department is follow up on the Red Cross blood drive. This was put together over the summer, so the commission wasn't even aware of it because it wasn't even planned yet, I don't think, at our July meeting. That's how fast sometimes things happen around here. So this blood drive occurred on September 20th, and we called it the Battle of the Badges because the fire department went up against the police department. In total, there were 29 units of blood that were donated. More importantly, the fire pulled off the W.
Nice, nice.
And that's all I have for good of the department.
I have one addition. I certainly would like to congratulate our chief for celebrating his 4th anniversary on September 11th. It just seems impossible that 4 years have gone by, and it just seems like yesterday that this commission sat together to interview and to bring you on board with your plan to move this department forward, that you've implemented most of it over the last 4 years. I know you certainly have expanded on that 5-year plan that you were initially presented to us, but we certainly have seen tremendous growth and achievement through our department under your leadership, and we congratulate you and thank you for your 4 years of service, and we look forward to you leading this department in many years to come.
Still got things to do.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. And I see our union president is here. Any comments, Mr. President?
I have one item.
Sure, please.
This Saturday at the
Please
fairground.
come up.
I'm sorry. I'll let you know, this Saturday at the fairgrounds, the union is going to be sponsoring the 2nd annual Brew Cup. We're going to have about, I believe, 25 microbreweries will be there. They'll be doing a beer tasting, and then all the spectators will be able to vote as to which beer they feel is the best beer in Connecticut. And then we'll present that brewery with a trophy that we have made up. And all the proceeds that we generate will be donated to Mushila District Association.
Perfect. What time does that begin?
It's at 12 o'clock and runs till 4 o'clock.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Very nice. Anything else for the good of the fire department? Like to I'm sorry?
You gotta do public comment?
Yeah, like to move into public comments? Yes.
Jeff O'Bear, 1124 Hartford Turnpike. As you all know, Chief O'Bear was my dad. And my family is very proud of everything he did throughout his 45 years in the fire department, but not only in the North Haven Fire Department, but also throughout the state and the region. He was involved nationwide with all the fire chief associations, New England Fire Chief Associations, and it was a great honor for us that the Board of Selectmen voted to honor him by naming a station. I can say I'm a little disappointed in the way things are turning out now, but I also think it diminishes that honor by just carte blanche naming all the fire stations after every retired chief just because they're a retired chief. I think they should all be done individually, and it should be turned based on what they've done for the department, for the region, and for the fire service in general. I think it takes away the prestige of having a building named if you name all 3 buildings just because a chief retired. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Sally.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
Sally Blamey, 5 Blossom Drive. I had 4 items prepared to discuss, but before I get to those, first I'd like to echo your congratulations to Pastor Jim for his chaplain's award, my friend Pastor Jim. And I would like to put in my 2 cents on naming the building, not only as a lifelong resident of North Haven, but as a member of the Board of Selectmen. I did not research I did not do any legal research on who has the authority or what entity or body in town has the authority to name a building, but Attorney D'Onofrio has the highest caliber as an attorney, and so I will have to trust his legal evaluation that it's up to the town meeting. With that said, I think I was at a meeting about 6 months ago when this was first brought up, and I did say at that time that I supported Montaouise being named after O'Bear, but I qualified that comment saying I needed to hear from my fellow members of the Board of Selectmen. And as you said, we had at a meeting, I don't know, I would say within the past 4 months, maybe, we did unanimously vote on it. And for you to say that it was a null and void vote, that may be true as far as having the authority to name the building, but I think that it shows that the Board of Selectmen is committed to naming Montaouise after the late Chief O'Bear. Tonight is the first time I've heard about discussions of combining the other two houses, naming them for the other two chiefs, and I have to piggyback on the fire union president's comments, and I agree with him 100%. I don't think they should be combined. I think it's too much of a privilege to be given out carte blanche. But the reason why I don't think that the vote is as null and void as you may think, as far as the Board of Selectmen vote, we do as a board very often, we have the only authority in town to call a town meeting, so we would call it. There are provisions in the statute for citizens to petition for a town meeting, but that's rare. So we generally call the town meetings, but often when we make the call for a town meeting, we do vote to make a recommendation on legislation, whether it's an ordinance or not. So my guess is if this did come before the Board of Selectmen, we would call it to a town meeting with our recommendation as to what to do. So that unanimous vote, although it may be null and void for the purposes of effectuating the actual naming of the building, I think it should give you a clear indication of what our recommendation would ultimately be to the town meeting. So I think it, has some importance. But going back to what Union President O'Bear said, I really have to agree with him that we have to be careful in naming buildings, and this now I'm talking as a citizen, not as a member of the Board of Selectmen. I think we have to be careful just grouping together all of our chiefs and retired chiefs and using up all of our buildings, if you will, because events could happen in the future that could really indicate someone else worthy for, not necessarily a chief, maybe someone who volunteered for 50 years or something. These are, after all, volunteer firehouses. And I believe that they should be named after people who have served most of their fire service here in town as opposed to other towns. And another thing is, retired Chief Marola, Leodisio, and even O'Bear, they're kind of from the same set of decades, you know what I'm saying, a time period. We've got a lot of future ahead of us in town. So I just don't see having all these buildings named after people from the same town. Obviously, John Rosadini, who I knew personally, I've known the Rosadini family most of my life, was deserving. I mean, he was a volunteer going back, I think, in the 30s and 40s, and then became our first chief, and was the first chief of our first paid fire department, I believe. So there's no question there. And the same with Chief O'Bear, who I had the privilege of working with in the 1980s when I was on the Board of Finance. A lifelong North Haven member of the North Haven Fire Department as either a volunteer or paid firefighter and then later chief. But, we really have to be careful naming them all after people that are from the same era, and we have to keep some for future consideration. So that's why I agree with the Union President O'Bear's comments that we should be very careful in bulking them together. And that's my personal thoughts on that.
Thank you.
Now, getting to my 4 items, the first one the chief had already commented on. I wanted an update on the FEMA grant, and I agree a lack of a denial is better than, the old no news is good news, and so hopefully we'll hear soon. My second item was an update on the damage to the apparatus from the highway. You said that it's still being repaired, that it's going to be out at least for the end of the year. Can you give me some indication of what percentage of the damage to that apparatus was body damage versus mechanical?
I can't give you a percentage. Having looked at the quote, and the insurance company was going back and forth with the repair shop for a while on, to be honest with you, it really came down to was it worth repairing or not. The value of the engine was being weighed against what the cost of repairs were. It's our third newest engine, but it's still 16 years old.
Right.
And so I don't know the percentage. I can tell you the number was in the neighborhood of about $60,000 for repairs from the accident. We then, because it's going to be taken apart and because it's going to be at a point where it's going to be much like if you do repairs to your house. There's things that we had to do to it anyways, and we're going to put about, I want to say about $20,000 into it that's unrelated to the accident, that need to get done anyways with an engine of that age, and it is saving us money in the future because the engine's already going to be apart and able to do. So I don't have a percentage for each of the dollar values.
Where, I know there's that facility here in town, is that a mechanical repair or an auto body or both?
Both.
It is.
So that's where it's being
repaired. That where it is?
That's where the insurance company also agreed to have it repaired, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yep.
I mean, we see fire engines from all over the state coming in because of that facility where the emissions station used to be years ago.
Yep, it's
we
there.
all remember that, or waiting in line there. It just seems like a long time to me. I mean, I understand, having done a lot of car accident claims in my professional career, the back and forth, but it usually goes much quicker than this. I understand the complexities of the apparatus may make it a bit longer, but when was this accident?
I don't have
it was in the spring.
It was in the spring, yeah.
Yeah.
Spring,
So-
early summer.
So if you're talking, you know, I thought it was around May, you know, and you're saying not till the end of the year, that's 8 months seems an awful long time.
It took 4 to
fix
6
an apparatus.
weeks
Yeah.
to get the insurance company and the auto body shop to agree. I remember that clearly
Yeah.
because I remember almost going to a second commission meeting where I was becoming frustrated because I didn't have an answer yet if it was going to
Okay.
be repaired. So it does seem like a long time.
Okay, and I wanted to ask a little bit about the inspections you talked about in your report, the 181,000. That is for the plan review, the fire fees for plan review of new construction, correct? Right. And a consultant performs, according to the most recent figures that I have were from the Board of Finance meeting last week and only went to the end of August, so yours must be a little more up to date. Mine, it was at 177, so yours must be a little more up to date. It looked like from the report on the consultant line item, which was about 14,900, that the consultants are doing all of those plan reviews. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
No.
How come the consultant fee of 14,900 matches the special document that the Director of Finance prepares for the fire fee line item?
I don't know what documents. I don't know which documents those were.
I can show you.
But I can tell you that it's a combination of myself, the Deputy Chief of Administration, and the consultants that are conducting either the investigations, the inspections, or the plan review. It's split up amongst.
Well, I'm talking about just the plan review for now. I'll get to the inspection. The inspections are existing buildings like restaurants and stores where you go in, and that's where you reported the 77 violations.
Correct.
77 inspections, 16 re-inspections, and then you had a certain number of violations. Those are inspections of existing buildings.
Correct.
I'm talking about the plan review, the fire fees that we earn for plan review of construction documents, where through the building department we get a fee. The fee's $8 per $1,000 of construction price, according to the website. It's on the website. So that's where this 181 is being generated. So I'm just focusing on that. So the consultants are not doing all of the work. You and the deputy chief are also reviewing plans.
Yep.
Okay. And that,
what I think might be getting a little confused is the plan reviews include a series of inspections as well. So we can't carve off inspections as they mean this in this case and this not the case. We look at inspections as all kind of the same. So during a construction process, there could be anywhere from 2 to multiple inspections taking place of that building while it's being built, and those are tied into inspections as well. Those are not part of what I'm reporting on a monthly basis because they can be occurring multiple times a day at different properties.
Right, that's the problem. I think people are using inspections in different ways.
Correct.
Some are affiliated with new construction, some are just the statutorily required inspections of existing enterprises in town, whether it be a store, a restaurant, where I assume the inspections are making to make sure that fire codes are being followed, that cooking facilities are properly vented, that back doorways aren't blocked by file cabinets and things like that, correct?
Yeah.
So those inspections don't bring in revenue. Those are just, See, that's the confusion I think that happens a lot of the Board of Finance meetings. People are confusing inspections.
Yeah. I'm going to try to address that the next time I have an opportunity to speak in front of the Board of Finance so that they clearly understand what that is. We do not charge for the 1 to 4 year inspections of existing buildings. There's an opportunity for us to do that in the future. It's not something I really support at this time. But there are also a number of inspections, tenfold to that require during a building being remodeled or being built brand new.
So not only are you reviewing doing the plan review, but during the construction project, you or the consultants are going out to see that the plans that you approved are being properly effectuated under the codes that you are enforcing, I would assume.
Right, between the codes and the plans that are being reviewed. Yep.
Okay. So, because I had asked you at a meeting about last spring, I was here, and I had asked you how many inspections you were doing, and at that time I meant inspections of existing buildings, and you said none.
And that's where I think that mix-up happened. Is there's inspections for existing buildings, there's inspections for the new construction process.
So when you said none, which ones did you mean? Because the first selectman and I have been arguing about this.
Yeah, for the most part, it's for the new buildings. I don't get involved in the new buildings. I get involved in some of it. If I do, it's the higher level sensitive issues that can turn.
By new building, you mean that are under construction or renovation?
Yep.
Okay. So you're not doing those inspections?
Correct.
But are you doing inspections, or are the consultants doing inspections, or a combination of both, of existing buildings like restaurants and stores?
Combination of both.
Combination of both. And you are authorized as a fire marshal, and then the deputy chief also?
Correct.
And he's doing them as well?
Correct.
Okay. And my last item was, at the last Board of Finance meeting, which was last week, there was some discussion amongst the Board of Finance members about the fire department's, one of the line items in the fire department budget, the maintenance and repair line item. And because it was, that maintenance and repair line item in the fire department budget, I'm talking about for 1920 fiscal year, was budgeted at $95,000, but as of August 31st, it was already spent out at 69%. So there were questions amongst the Board of Finance members about that. And so the Finance Office sent us all, and by all I mean the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen members, a printout of that line item based on, the discussions at that meeting. And I received my copy, and I just had two questions. One, I'm going to ask you, Chief, because Mr. Smokowski couldn't answer and referred me to you. Why are there uniform line items in the maintenance and repair budget if we have a $40,000 uniform line item in the
It's
budget.
probably an error on finance.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
That happens. If you've seen the budgets enough to see sometimes where they list things and then they minus the same number out and it gets put onto a different line.
Okay.
That
I
may
haven't
not be in
seen
front
that
of you,
yet.
but
Okay.
if you look at enough munis reports, you'll see that happen quite a bit.
Okay, so we do have a separate $40,000 uniform line item. So, right, as I said, I had asked Mr. Swinkowski and he referred me to you. And my last comment or question is, who is Uline, U-L-I-N-E?
It's like a vendor similar to like a Home Depot.
Oh,
You can find them
okay.
online.
Okay, I never heard of them, so.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to move into executive session.
So move.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Okay, you ready?
I'd like to reconvene the September 24, 2019 North Haven Fire Commission meeting. Are there any other comments, any other further business coming before this commission?
May I?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I don't want to belabor it, but Kurt Andrews, Lieutenant of the Fire Police in town. I just wanted to do a couple things if I could. I want to thank the chief and the commission's support for volunteers and the changes that have been made in town for our abatement, pension, etc. I appreciate that. I also want to align my comments with Sally Boehme and with Jeff O'Beer about the firehouses being named. I think they need to be earned, and just to make a blanket naming procedure, I don't think that's right from my personal experience. So, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other further comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.